They're here.
You don't understand. I could have had class. I could have been a contender.
Hulk, smash.
Mrs. Robinson, you're trying to seduce me.
Here's Johnny.
What do you want?
Hey, motherfucker.
You never go ass to mouth.
Now what is so damn funny?
And here we go.
We will not go quietly into the night. We will not vanish without a fight.
The Force will be with you. Always.
But the truth! You can't handle the truth! Showtime, everybody! Showtime!
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the For Real Movie Club. I am your host, Chris the Dace Man Dace, and tonight we will be talking about Halloween horror films and the icons that have shaped horror in general. Joining me on the panel from the Dace Man Show, usually around the corner, and the guy I make fun of a lot, Gibby. I'm not here. So disturbing. Also joining us from the Dace Man Show, Frank Ward.
Hi.
Who's not him
I
here?
can't. Oh, him. What?
Kick
What?
him out. We don't need him.
From Fanboys Anonymous,
So much better.
Caroline, I'm going to probably butcher this, Oliveira.
That was pretty good.
Oh, sweet.
Hi, everybody.
So tonight,
You had a chance.
tonight we're going to talk about horror movies and the icons that have really shaped the business as is. And the first movie we're going to kick off with is really the first of its kind for the slasher horror films. It's from 1978 and is the American independent slasher horror film directed and scored by John Carpenter. It's also co-written and produced by Deborah Hill and starred Donald Pleasance and Jamie Lee Curtis in her film debut. The film was the first installment in which became the Halloween franchise. The plot is set in the fictional Midwestern town of Haddonfield, Illinois, I like to think it's New Jersey, on Halloween night in 1963. A 6-year-old Mike Myers murders his older sister by stabbing her with a kitchen knife. 15 years later, he escapes from a psychiatric hospital, returns home, and stalks teenager Laurie Strode and her friends. Michael's psychiatrist, Dr. Sam Loomis, the man, suspects Michael's intentions and follows him to Haddonfield to try and prevent him from killing more people. So, as always, when we talk about each film, we're going to go around the table and get your initial thoughts and how you feel about Halloween from 1978. I'd like to throw in there that if Sean Walker's listening, or he did listen, he couldn't get through the first 30 minutes because he thought it was an awful turd. Gibby, what were your thoughts on Halloween, a 1978 film?
I personally hate the Halloween franchise. It's the passion, to be honest.
Were you disappointed it wasn't Shrek?
Exactly. I don't know. It just seemed to be a weird concept to me.
Murder?
No, it's just not. So when did it cut me off?
Cut you off when you were bashing the film. Welcome back. We're sorry for that. Gibby's opinion apparently does not matter to the internet. Gibby, you were saying that the film was fantastic?
I hate this film. I don't know what you're talking about. I just don't like the premises where he's always killing basically kids or teenagers who are babysitting.
But isn't that like all slasher movies, though?
No, not really. If you actually just look at all the other ones we have on the list. There's nothing about, babysitting here. And
Wait, that's your problem with the film?
Babysitter. Yeah, that's the problem.
It just seems weird to me. Like I have issues with all of them that have there's a couple of them out there nowadays that always with babysitters and stuff. Oh my God, he's in the house, blah blah blah, and it's just so stupid on how it's Scary Movie makes fucking fun of it all the time because oh my God, I broke my leg. It's kind of weird. I just never really got into it. I don't know.
Because you hate babysitters. That's what I'm gathering from this.
He has a problem with babysitters.
Exactly
What
right.
happened? What happened to you?
Were you touched by a babysitter when you were younger?
I was molested.
Do we need to rape there? Where
When I was
is
young.
So we all know that this is going to be the film that will probably make fun of Gibby for the most. I feel like he relates probably to the pedophile that we'll be talking about later on. Carolyn, what was your first impressions on this cult classic that Gibby hates?
Well, just throwing out there, it's definitely not my favorite of the slasher movies, but I don't hate it. I think it's a little slow in the beginning, but I think that, one, it's a horror movie, so I'm very biased. I love all horror movies, even the very crappy ones, like Jesus Christ, The Vampire Slayer. I watched that one. It's okay. I think that they just wanted something to throw it out there that could compete with other, like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, things like that, where somebody wearing a mask is hunting everybody around, killing babysitters, chasing babysitters. It's not my favorite, but I think that, yes, it does have cheesy parts where, somebody falls and the killer is right behind them, but I think that it contributed for the horror genre. I mean, that cheesiness about it, that's what it is. It wasn't, I don't think it was meant to be a serious horror movie. It was just meant to be something you go watch in the movie theater and eat popcorn and, just enjoy, even though I kind of fell asleep in the first 5 minutes. But, yeah.
It's true. It's really one of the first of its kind when it comes to a man who can't be taken down just murdering as many people as possible. Okay, Frank has dropped off the call.
We got major issues here, don't we?
Right? I'm trying to get into the studio. Dog Talk decides to be stupid again. So while Frank is gone, we'll do some facts about the movie. Like I said earlier, it was written by John Carpenter and co-written by Deborah Hill. And again, it stars Donald Pleasance, who is the man, as Dr. Loomis. And that role was later reprised by Malcolm McDowell in the Rob Zombie films. And Jamie Lee Curtis played the star woman that she wanted to kill, that Michael wanted to kill. P.J. Souls also had a role in this movie. Many of you may remember her from the movie Stripes and stuff like that. It was distributed by Compass International Pictures, as well as Warner Brothers Pictures internationally. The release date was October 25th, 1978, just days before Halloween. The runtime in its original cut was 87 minutes and 101 minutes in the extended cut. The country was released in was the U.S., the language is English. The budget was only $300,000, and the box office was $70 million. So, Gibby, they did something right.
It's a cult classic. I'll admit that one. But they love it a lot with like all cult classics. You're either gonna love it or you're gonna hate it.
Mm-hmm.
There's no real middle ground with those type of movies.
Yeah. So, Frank, welcome back. What was your first impression of the 1978 Halloween film?
Well, I'm kind of in the middle. I didn't really love it, didn't really hate it. Not to mention I was probably like 9 when I saw it the first time. So it seemed to be the scariest thing ever in the world.
Yeah.
Though I personally
like. It was that scary when I first saw it.
I like Mike Myers and Austin Powers better. Is that a different guy?
It's close. I think it was the guy who plays Wayne, right?
Yeah.
Oh
like
my
that.
God.
No. For what it was, and for the fact that it was made in the 70s, I don't know what more you could really expect since we've gotten so much farther in technology. So you have to respect it for what it is, but it's not my go-to horror movie.
Yeah, if you think about it, we are part of the spoiled age when it comes to films. Now our comic book characters are coming to life, and when slashers are getting very more creative because there's really crazy people out there. This one was very brute. I'm just going to pick you up, beat you, smash. Kind of like the Hulk.
I'm going to slow wall as you sprint across the field, but I'll catch you. Don't worry.
They're huge. They're athletic.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to this film, and you kind of touched base on it a little bit, Frank, so I'm going to ask you this question. One of the most iconic things in most of these films, actually all of these films that we're going to talk about tonight, is the horror icon somehow moves in slow motion, and the world around it is trying to move as fast as it can. Do you think that hurts or adds to a film when they talk to you about, hey, Let's just see if
They did not communicate.
Hey, I'm back again. The question was pretty long and winded when I was giving it, so I'm just going to short it up. Frank, what's your opinion on the killers walking slow and the people running fast?
Well, I think it was probably meant to add into it, like you just can't get away. And have you ever had that fucked up nightmare where something's chasing you and you can't run away or scream or anything like? No, just me. It's just no. That's cool. It might be just you wouldn't understand.
Yeah, the corn you eat.
Yeah, Children of the Corn, which we're not talking about.
Yeah, that was a great movie.
I'm sorry, Gibby.
I think at the time it made sense and it added to it. Is where I'm going with that. Yeah, be afraid. You can't run. He'll find you, stab you in the back.
Gibby, how thrilled were you with that kind of what? Gibby, how thrilled were you when it came to?
He was thrilled.
I find it kind of odd. What?
What?
I have no idea. Anyway, I find it kind of odd, kind of to make it seem unrealistic in certain aspects. I know they do it to add suspense and some stuff, but like they kind of made it really corny to a certain extent, and I think we're slowly getting out of that phase when it comes to at least the newer genres for slashers. Not as thick as that's always a good thing. And I didn't mind it as much in the very first one because they really didn't over exaggerate as much as the later ones did. So I think they're fixed in their ways. Let's put it that way.
Carol, what was your opinion on this slow-moving, catch up to them really fast mentality?
I agree with what everybody said. I think that okay, if you had a killer that was just running around frantic, like Leatherface. Yes, Leatherface was really scary, but he ran a lot. He has his chainsaw up in the air. Mike Myers, it's more like he's the cool, collected, psychopath that will get to you no matter what. So there's nothing you can do about it. Yeah, and totally, I agree 100% with that nightmare that everybody has had at least once in their life, where you try to run away, but you either can move or whatever is after you is moving way faster, even though it doesn't look like it, and it's scary. It's almost as if you have no control of the situation, and I think that losing control of anything is one of the biggest fears that we have as a society. Nobody wants to be not in control of, their lives, their survival. And Mike Myers, by moving really slowly, he's a big nightmare for that fear.
Yeah, for sure. That's one thing that these movies like to entail is to try to get into the helpless situation that you're in the seat of the victim as you're watching. One thing that I enjoyed about these older movies, and we're going to start with you on this one, Frank, because I like to pick on you. You weren't even listening. That's hurtful.
You look pretty.
Yeah. The concept, the way they shoot it, we had this discussion when you were out in Jersey this past weekend. The way they shoot these films, no, this was one of your sober days. This is where when they kill people in the scenes, you don't really see the killing a lot of the deaths. So do you think that hurts or takes away from the film? Or does it add to the film that we have to apply our imagination?
Yes. Well, for one, it was probably a lot easier to fake stabbing somebody that way and have blood gush everywhere, spray them in the face, cover the children type deal than it is nowadays to fake it, if that makes sense. Like with special effects and stuff that we have now, it was easier to do, but I'm assuming probably back then that was the easiest, cheapest, best way to go about it.
Yeah, it had a budget of $300,000. We couldn't even make a TV show. Yeah. I think. I don't know.
I'm sticking with. It was probably of hey, how are we going to make this is?
But for you as a viewer, as you're watching this, because this seems to be a movie that kind of puts people in a middle ground way of your Gibby. How do you feel about it? Do you feel gypped? Do you feel that there should have been more holes in that person?
But again, you're thinking like if you were watching this in 1978, probably not. Now, yes.
Mm-hmm. So we're part of that.
So I'm going on two different sides here. I'm giving it respect for how old it is versus what I want to see.
That makes sense. But Carolyn, do you think it hurts or helps that the death scenes are kind of ambiguous when it comes to killing?
I think that it helps to a certain way. They love wood and have scenes in movies. So I'm cool if they keep the view of the death, like we don't know what happened. We just see the after effects of it. But every now and then, like not all the time, give us some crazy gut-wrenching moments where you just want to get grossed out about it. And maybe that's why Halloween is not one of my favorites. I don't know. Like, I would rather see more stuff.
Gibby, finally, you're the one who's kind of movie. Does it hurt? Is this why you don't like the movie when it comes to the death scenes, that they're not gory enough, that you're spoiled and you'd rather have graphics and CGI cutting people out?
No, I mean, I actually like it better when it doesn't show you as much per se as a newer movie. As long as you get to at least see the after effects, basically. But I mean, actually having like the entire scene of him basically beating the crap out of somebody, I think your imagination makes it seem a lot worse than if they actually showed it to you in the movie. Mm-hmm. If that makes any sense.
Well, you're a sick person, so yes.
So that to me would be I actually prefer it the way they did it, where it's kind of not as kind of scenes where it's almost like looking at him and him beating the crap out of him and blood just going places and GG. Then it cuts back to the dead person on the ground.
Did you just use gamer code for good going? Or good game?
Good game. So that's the preference. Even if you think about it, a lot of the earlier movies had it that way solely because of it's a lot harder to reenact that and make it look real. So a lot of the earlier movies would basically cut to the victim's eyes of them basically getting murdered, and then cut back to like a third person showing the aftermath, which I thought was a lot. I personally like that more than the crazy stuff that they do nowadays, personally.
Fair enough. Gibby, I'm going to give you another question from going from here. Halloween spawned 7 sequels.
Don't even
Seven. And two remakes by Rob Zombie. Mm-hmm. Being a man that did not like the 1978 version because you're a terrorist.
Yep.
Do you feel that it should not have gone any further, or did you feel that when it got in its groove and started moving into the franchise sequels and such, do you think it helped it? Busta Rhymes in 2002 did not do it for me, but just kind of curious on what your opinion are of the franchise as a whole.
So, I mean, I'll tell you. I mean, I watched the first one. I didn't really like it that much. Then I actually watched the second one, mm-hmm. and that's pretty much when I gave up on that movie franchise. Mm-hmm. And then I watched the remake by Rob Zombie.
Yes.
I thought it was okay. I didn't think it was great per se. I know a lot of people liked it, but it for some reason just the whole concept of this. I don't know exactly what it is, but something about it I just don't really that much.
There wasn't too many baby in the Rob Zombie one. If that was
that was because he was mostly going after his family in that one. Mm-hmm. Which is also how the first one started in the original, because he pretty much killed I believe he killed his sister first, then at Insane Asylum, and then came back out, and then he started killing all the people. Whereas in the Rob Zombie one, it was just pretty much revolving around his family. And I won't even lie, I never even seen the second Rob Zombie one, because the first one intrigued me.
There was definitely a lot more backstory in the first Rob Zombie remake.
Yeah.
Carolyn, what were your thoughts on this taking off as a franchise?
Well, I was just gonna say exactly how the backstory was more evident in the first remake of Rob Zombie's remake. I don't know, like I kind of watched movies. You know when you're like really not really watching, it's on in the background and you're doing something else. So to me, it didn't really help. Like I don't really care for the remakes. The only thing that I kind of liked about the Rob Zombie ones was the background story. But at the same time, that was like really me trying to find something that I enjoyed. Because sometimes if you show too much of the backstory, it kind of makes a character not that interesting anymore because you can't really imagine what happened to him. But that was like my least favorite part of that movie. But the other Halloween was kind of like, I mean, maybe if I'm like rearranging my bookcase and there's nothing else to watch, I might watch it, but I don't really care for it.
Mm-hmm. Frank, what was your opinion on the franchise as a whole?
Did he just die?
He's probably eating. He's good at that.
Yes. No, I'm not eating. I already ate. I'm always dead.
Right. I don't have much of an opinion on it, to be fully honest. Like, it was just one of those things where if it was on TV, I caught it. If it wasn't, I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of useless right now.
Perfect. Well,
yay.
Thank you.
Halloween 3 obviously had nothing to do with Michael Myers whatsoever when it comes to the expansion of the franchise. And to me, at least,
didn't get that far.
Don't worry, it's about some kind of mask that eats away at people's heads.
Did not get that far.
To me, Halloween 4 and 5 were my favorites when it came to it, because it kind of reintroduced Mike after a terrible idea of doing Halloween 3, and then it was also around the time I was born, so I had ideas of this is the way I'm going to go. When it comes to this movie, and just one last touch point before we go on to the next one, Gibby, on a scale, can you guys hear that?
Yes.
Yeah, there's a train right next to me. Apparently the train ran into me, destroying the computer, and I apologize. But now we're back, and the last question we're going to wrap up with the Halloween franchise is, what was the low point, high point of the movie, or low point, high point of the franchise, because we'll just go overall. And 1 to 10, what would you rank this film? So we'll start with you, Senor Gibb.
All right. Let's see here. I would say, do you want me to give the rating first, or do you like a first format on this, or no?
Go nuts.
All right. So I personally didn't enjoy the movie at all. I think my biggest issue was it was kind of a odd setup. I know it's like one of the original slashers, but I don't know. I had issues with the way he was killing things and his selection of choice, I guess you would say. It was kind of just seemed like it was haphazardly put together to a certain extent. And that's for, I guess, the best thing that happened to it. I really don't have a best thing because I really don't like it, is my problem.
I figured your worst thing would be about the babysitters, that kids
I
able to watch.
was going to say I was waiting for the babysitter.
Well, I mean, that's kind of what I was just saying. Like the whole, like what he was killing, like that's what he's trying to kill, his babysitters, which I find weird.
Oh, I don't listen to you. Sorry.
No, I know it. I did notice that. So that would be my biggest issue, and there's no real good points to it in my opinion. The only good thing I would say about it is it did start a great genre. Like, it's a very great genre it started. Because it's pretty much catapulted all of the slasher movies. So they did take a big risk in trying to do this, basically. So I guess that would be a good thing for it. And as for score, I mean, I would probably give it either like probably about a 4.
4?
Yeah.
You're a terrible person.
The only reason it's that high is just because I know it's a cult classic. And I know I don't personally like it, but I know a lot of people out there like it, so that's why it's getting a 4.
That's very generous of you to not even give it a 50%.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Frank, what was your high point, low point, and what would you rate the movie?
High point is he killed people. I was a big fan of that.
Okay. I have a feeling you're going to like the next 3 films.
Oh, do they also have something to do with killing?
I think Child's Play is about redemption, but we'll find out.
And low point, not enough boobs.
So he's gonna like Friday the 13th.
Yes. And you got a hell of a ride coming up soon, sir.
And I think as far as rating goes, I would settle on a 6.372. 4.
Wow.
Really specific there. Carolyn, what was your high point, low point on the film, and what would you give it a rating 1 to 10?
Okay. Low point, I think that the Michael Myers character should have been a little bit more developed. I think that if they gave him a little bit more depth, it would have made up so much for all the reasons people normally don't like the movie or are a little iffy about it. High point, I think the fact that there's like somewhat small movie, the first one, and ended up creating a bunch of other sequels and 2 remakes, and it's still relevant today. I think that's pretty awesome, and I think that alone makes it up for its shortcomings. And Halloween 3. I think I would give it like maybe like a 6, 6.5. Let's say 6.5. And I always really took points because I feel like Michael Myers had a lot of potential to be a really, really awesome villain, and it kind of fell short.
Fair enough. So
I want to change my answer to whatever she said. In depth and stuff.
You're not allowed to sound smart, Frank. You're playing the mediocre role here with your .324s or whatever you were giving. So that, ladies and gentlemen, wraps up.
Great.
That, ladies and gentlemen, wraps up the Halloween franchise here on the Four Reel Movie Club. If you're listening live, hang on to your butts. We're going to go into the next one. If you're listening on the archive session, we're going to go ahead and click the little link to the next video or whatever Tony sets up. As we move from babysitters to camp counselors, as we move into Friday the 13th, Part 2.